In this video, I'm going to talk about everyday actions you do that can embarrass yourself or the person you're speaking to, and I'm going to make this explanation using Erving Goffman's concept of face and Brown and Levinson's concept of politeness. Hi everybody, this is Bruce Lambert from HowCommunicationWorks.com. This is a channel where I teach you about communication skills so you can improve your relationships, succeed at work, be more confident, and lead a more fulfilling life. One of the things that makes us afraid of communication is the prospect of embarrassing ourselves. And there's no way around it. There's a lot of ways we can embarrass ourselves in ordinary interaction. In fact, many of the structures in ordinary interaction are there precisely to give us a way to avoid embarrassment and to repair embarrassment should it occur. So in this video, I want to explain how even many of the common things that we do, making requests, making compliments, making apologies, can embarrass us or cause us to lose face, or can embarrass the person we're speaking to or cause them to lose face. In order to do this, we have to review a couple of basic concepts that I've spoken about before. I'll link to some previous videos where you can learn about these basic concepts. I'll only describe them briefly here. The first idea is the idea of face, or the positive social value that we claim for ourselves by acting in a certain way in a given interaction. This is the sense that I am somebody. I am someone worthy of respect. I am someone that has a particular social status, and I need to be treated in a particular way. And we claim this value for ourselves by acting in a certain way in every interaction that we participate in. The reason most of us even know the meaning of the word face in this context is because of the expression to lose face. To lose face is to be embarrassed or humiliated, to have your identity spoiled in some interaction, to be shown to be not who you want to be, not who you claim to be. This is to lose face. And Brown and Levinson, in their book about politeness, define what they call face-threatening acts. So a face-threatening act is just anything that I do or another person does that has the potential to threaten face, to cause us to lose face. There's two more concepts which we have to get to before we can go down the catalog of all the ways in which we can lose face or cause others to lose face. And that is the two aspects of face that Brown and Levinson discovered. Now, I made a previous video about politeness. I'll link to that here and you can learn more about it. And I'll link in the description to some long blogs that I wrote about politeness if you want to learn more. But Brown and Levinson said that there were two aspects of face. Positive face, the desire to be liked and approved of, to have your wants wanted by other people. That is, the desire to be liked. That's positive face. And negative face, the desire to be left alone, to go about your business without being interrupted or impeded in any way. So there's two aspects of face, positive face and negative face. Leave me alone and like me. The leave me alone is negative face, the like me is positive face. Now that we have these basic concepts in hand, we can understand all of the ways in which positive and negative face can be threatened in ordinary interaction. These face threats normally occur when the task goals of communication interfere with the relationship goals of communication. That is, when we need to get something done, but in doing it, we're going to hurt the feelings of the person that we're talking to in some way. We're going to do something that might damage the relationship between us and the person we're talking to. And we need to do that because of the task goals of the situation. Now, Brown and Levinson's whole book about politeness describes how we can use a variety of devices in language to manage threats to face. I'm not going to talk about how we avoid threatening face in this video. I've talked about it in other videos, and I'll make some new videos about that too. Here, I just want to talk about all the ways in which ordinary actions can threaten positive or negative face of the speaker or the listener. In the rest of this video, I'm going to talk about the two main roles in a simple face-to-face interaction. The speaker, the one who's doing the talking, and the hearer, the one who's listening to the speaker. And both the speaker's face can be threatened and the hearer's face can be threatened. So I'll use those terms throughout. So let's first talk about actions that can threaten the hearer's negative face. These are actions that can threaten the hearer's desire to be left alone, to go about their business in an uninterrupted, unimpeded way. So any acts that predicate a future act of the hearer, that is, orders and requests, suggestions and advice, reminders, threats, warnings, and dares. What all of these actions have in common is that they predicate some future action on the part of the hearer. So an order obviously tells someone what to do. A request asks someone what to do. Even suggestions and advice are basically indirect ways of getting people to do things. Reminders are the same thing. You wonder why people are annoyed when you remind them, because the reminder is a face-threatening thing. It threatens their desire to be left alone. Remember, people have this persistent desire to be left alone. Threats, warning, and dares are also things that demand some action on the part of the hearer, and because the hearer wants to be left alone, any communicative act that demands a response threatens their desire to be left alone. So all these things, orders, requests, suggestions, advice, reminders, threats, warnings, and dares all threaten the hearer's negative face, their desire to be left alone. And to do all these things, you have to, if you don't want to threaten face, you need to do them politely. There are some other actions which I think are less obvious in the way that they threaten the hearer's negative face. These are things like promises and offers. So when you promise someone something, you would think when you promise someone something that it's a nice thing and they shouldn't be offended by that. That can't cause someone to lose face. But if you promise someone something, this imposes an obligation on them. When you promise someone something, they might feel a debt to you because you've made the promise, or the promised future action might require some response by them. And all of this threatens their negative face. They'd rather, don't promise me anything because I don't want to be obliged to you and I don't want to have to respond to whatever this promised action is in the future. Similarly, offers threaten the hearer's negative face. Why? Because an offer demands either an acceptance or a rejection of the offer. And you don't want to be offered something. You want to just be left alone. So offers threaten the hearer's negative face. The third set of actions, I think, is the least obvious. So things like compliments or expressions of envy or admiration. What Brown and Levinson say, acts that predicate some desire of the speaker towards the hearer and force the hearer to take action to protect that object of desire. So when you compliment someone, you say, "Oh, what a lovely dress that is. What a beautiful pair of shoes. What a nice car." This forces the person either to accept the compliment, which also because they want to be left alone, they don't want to have to accept the compliment. And I made a whole other video about why responding to compliments is so difficult. Or you have to kind of protect the thing see that the person is kind of coveting the thing that you like, and you may be forced to take action to protect the object of their desire. This is why a compliment to your partner or boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife might be seen as face-threatening because you have to take action to protect the object of the desire that the speaker is talking about. So all of these actions, by requiring the hearer to take action in response, threaten negative face. And if you're going to do them at all, and you want to be someone with tact and social skill, you have to do them politely. That is, if you want to do them and not threaten face. Sometimes the whole object of a threat or a dare is to threaten face. But if you want to do these actions and not threaten face, you have to do them politely. The next category is actions that threaten the hearer's positive face. Now remember, the hearer's positive face is their desire to be liked, to be approved of, for their wants to be wanted by other people. Any action that indicates the speaker doesn't care about the hearer's feelings will threaten the hearer's positive face. So criticism, contempt, ridicule, obviously those things will threaten the hearer's positive face. Any expression of disapproval, complaints, contradictions, disagreements, challenges, all of these suggest or imply or overtly state that the speaker does not share the hearer's wants and does not like or approve of the speaker. So these directly threaten face. Now, there's lots of times in life where we have to express disapproval or criticism, or we have to make complaints, or we have to express contradiction or disagreement or challenge what other people say. I'm a college professor, an academic, and a scientist, and you sometimes have to express disagreement. But if you want to do that and not threaten face, you have to do it politely. There are other ways in which you can threaten the hearer's positive face, their desire to be liked and approved of. So things like mentioning of taboo or divisive topics, being very irreverent, using profanity. These things can threaten the hearer's positive face by suggesting that you don't care about their sense of propriety or social norms or what's proper in polite company. So being very irreverent or profane or mentioning taboo subjects shows a sort of disregard of the other person's wants and beliefs and norms. Any act of blatant non-cooperation where someone asks you to pass the salt and you don't pass the salt, this threatens the hearer's positive face because it suggests that you don't want their wants to be fulfilled. Or any mistaken forms of address. The classic one in medicine is when a female physician is called nurse instead of doctor. This threatens positive face. It threatens positive face because it fails to recognize the proper social status of the hearer. So now let's move to the speaker's face wants. So the speaker has negative face wants and positive face wants. The speaker has a desire to be left alone, and the speaker has a desire to be liked and approved of. So the speaker's face wants can be threatened in ordinary interaction too. And there are certain communicative actions that we do that threaten the speaker's face. So for example, having to express thanks, that to give thanks, or accept thanks. Both of those threaten our desire to be left alone. I don't want to express or accept thanks. I just want to be left alone. That's why when as parents, we tell our children, say thank you, we are imposing a burden on them. They just want to be left alone to eat their cake or open their presents. And the parents are always say thank you. And so to express thanks or to accept thanks imposes a burden on you to take some action when, of course, you'd rather just be left alone, or your negative face wants dictate that you'd like to just be left alone. Having to make excuses threatens your desire to be left alone. Accepting an offer. Remember, we said before, when you have to accept an offer, if someone makes an offer to you, you're like, oh, no, please don't make me any offers. Because if you make me an offer, I either have to accept or refuse. And what I really like to do is be left alone. Sometimes the speaker is put in a position of having to make a promise or make an offer when they really don't want to. So unwilling promises and unwilling offers are also things that threaten the speaker's desire to be left alone, their negative face. And finally, we come to the last category, the communicative actions that threaten the speaker's positive face. That is, things that you have to do as the speaker that threaten your own desire to be liked and approved of. So the first is the most obvious, apologies. When you apologize, you're obviously saying that you did something wrong, and the reason that so many of us are reluctant to apologize is because it damages our ego. It's a threat to our identity to have to apologize. An apology is an explicit admission that we're not perfect, and positive face is the desire not exactly to be perfect, but to be desirable, to be liked, to be approved of. And to apologize is to acknowledge explicitly that we've done something regrettable, unapprovable, and it's threatening to positive face. That's why apologies are so hard to make. Accepting a compliment is threatening to positive face. This is a strange one. If you go back to my video on compliment responses, you'll see why in detail. But briefly, when someone compliments us, we have two choices. We can accept the compliment or we can decline the compliment. Declining the compliment sort of threatens a negative face because we'd rather just be left alone. Like, don't compliment me because I don't want to have to brush off the compliment. But accepting a compliment threatens positive face because one of the things we want to maintain about our identity is the idea that we're humble, that we're modest. Many of us were brought up to believe that humility, modesty was a virtue, and that explicit acknowledgement of our own strengths and virtues was bragging. Was a show of conceit and should be avoided. So when someone compliments us and we accept the compliment, it threatens our own image of ourselves as a humble, modest person. And that's why accepting compliments is so difficult for so many people, because they feel the face threat. What Brown and Levinson called breakdown of physical or bodily control threatens positive face. So this is like farting, burping, falling asleep, vomiting, any of these things. If you go back to my second video, I think, I show this video of, I'll link to it above. I show this video of George Bush. The first George Bush, President George Bush, was on a state visit to Japan, and he ate something he didn't like, or he had the flu, and he vomited right in the lap of the Prime Minister of Japan, tremendously threatening to his positive face, to his desire to be liked and approved of, and to be seen as a person with tact and skill and diplomacy and so on. So any act, breakdown of physical or bodily control, burping, belching, crying, farting, falling asleep, vomiting, any of these things threatens positive face because we want to maintain for ourselves an image of someone who's under control, and any breakdown of control damages that self-image. Any act of self-humiliation will, by definition, threaten positive face. So acting stupid, contradicting ourselves, mispronouncing a word, using a malapropism, stumbling, falling, any of these things, having food in our teeth or having our fly open, any of these things is an act of self-humiliation which will embarrass the speaker and cause them to lose positive face. And finally, any of what Brown and Levinson call emotional leakage. And I've already referenced these to a certain extent when I talked about bodily breakdown, but this is sort of like psychological breakdown. So this is inappropriate laughter, tears, etc. At the wrong time, these will be embarrassing because they show a lack of control. So what I hope to illustrate in these examples of all the routine actions which threaten positive and negative face for the speaker and the hearer is a couple of things. First of all, how common and ubiquitous threats to face are, and therefore how common and ubiquitous is the need to use language to be polite and to manage threats to face. Face is at stake in every single interaction, and the need to manage threats to face and be aware of them and alert to them is probably, to me at least, the core social skill. It's an awareness that beneath the surface of every interaction are people who who have these persistent wants, these positive and negative face wants, the desire to be liked and approved of, that's positive face, the desire to be left alone to go about their business unimpeded. In every interaction, these desires are present. And yet, in almost every interaction, these desires are threatened. Just ordinary interaction, everyday life, the need to do things with one another, the task goals that we have to pursue at work and at home and in everyday life threaten our desire to be liked and approved of and our desire to be left alone. So threats to face are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. Therefore, to be polite and to be sensitive to other people's face threats, we have to use politeness, all these resources of language to manage threats to face so that we can do these face-threatening actions and still pay respect to people's face wants. I don't think it's possible to go around in the world and never threaten face, but I think it is possible to do all these routine face-threatening things, but use politeness so that we express and illustrate and dramatize to people that we care about their face wants, that we may have to violate them because that's the way life is. We may have to violate their desire to be liked and approved of. We may have to violate their desire to be left alone, but we recognize in violating those wants, we're damaging them in a way, and that we want to pay respect to them and basically say, I'm sorry, I have to do this thing that threatens your face, but I'm going to do it politely in order to express to you that I recognize you are a person with value and substance who has face wants, even though in this interaction I have to threaten or violate them. And I guess the second reason I list all these threats to positive and negative face for the speaker and the hearer is to show that the social world is a minefield, that almost everything we say or do has the potential to threaten face, and that developing a sensitivity to face threats is really essential to becoming a socially skilled person. In a related way, I want to reveal the underlying structure of social interaction. That is, in every interaction, in every face-to-face encounter especially, but this is true over the telephone and in email, somewhat invisible layer of meanings that has to do with face and face wants that's always at stake in every interaction, and that we have to be attentive to, and that being attentive to this hidden layer of meaning and using politeness and other devices to manage threats to face is what it means to be a skillful person socially, to have social skill, to have tact, poise, diplomacy, etc. So that's it for today. If you like videos like this, please like and subscribe, share this video with a friend, go on down in the comments and tell me what you think. Go over to howcommunicationworks.com, sign up for our email list, and we'll send you an ebook about empathy. We'll email you once or twice a week, perhaps with new videos we've posted to YouTube or blogs that we've posted online. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.